Hi everyone, this is Yana, and in this video I'm going to continue experimenting with inks from Spellbinders, and we'll also create a fun and modern card. If you've missed the video where I first explored the basic properties of inks from Spellbinders, you can find it here. Now for my today's project and experiment, I will be using several supplies, starting with the diagonal stripe stencil from Simon Says Stamp. I will also be using the lovely lavender ink from Spellbinders, along with an ink blending tool from Clear Snap, a few dies from Spellbinders, the arrow set called Shoot, and a cityscape die called Row of Houses. And also two stamp sets from Neat Tangled, the Stop and Go set and the Scrap Circles. I'm going to begin working on my card by applying some color with the help of a stencil and ink. First, I'm going to tape my card base down to my work surface as I do not want it to move while I'm working. I'm using washi tape, and I'm only going to tape the inside of the card base so that I don't have any masked areas on the front. I'm not going to ink the entire front of the card, but if I were to, and if I had taped the front of the card instead of the inside, I would have ended up having masked and uninked areas. Because the stencil that I'm going to use is a rather detailed one, I already applied some stencil adhesive to one side of it to help it stay in place while I do my inking. I've used Martha Stewart's stencil adhesive spray, and I sprayed it once. It's more than enough to make my stencil nice and sticky, and it actually stays sticky even after you wash it a couple times. It's not too sticky so that it would tear your paper, but it's sticky enough to stay in place while you apply ink on top of it. Okay, so I'm going to place it on top of my card front, press down a bit, and also tape it around the card front with some washi tape just in case. I'm going to use my Clear Snap ink blending tool to apply the ink. I have been already playing with this and some other stencils and inks, trying different color combinations, and here's what I came up with. So I have one with the entire background inked in cotton candy ink. This is actually my favorite one. Here I have another one with colored embossing paste, and I did use a few colors of inks here to color my paste. And then another one with the ink added on top of the embossing paste after it was dry, and then two other examples with different colors of ink over the stencil that I'm using today. Now, for all of these samples, I used the new Spellbinders ink. I wanted to see how well it worked for inking and blending before I did this video, so that's why I have all of these test pieces. Notice that to apply ink over this particular stencil, I'm not going in a circular motion. Instead, I'm just going in a back and forth motion following the directionality of the stripes. It's something similar to how you would move your hand when you would erase something with a pencil eraser. So I'm starting by applying very little pressure and therefore applying very little color onto my paper. I only want to add ink to the central portion of my card front. I do not want to ink the entire background. And I also want the edges of the inked area to be very light and the central part of the inked area to be a bit darker. Typically, I would move my paper around my table to make it easier to ink and blend everything, but this time I'm moving my hand around, turning the ink blending tool, and using the wider and the narrower parts of the tool to apply the ink. After my inking is done, I can carefully peel off my stencil and reveal this nice irregularly inked background. I can now move on to my die cutting. I'm going to use the Row of Houses die to die cut a few houses for my card. I don't need the entire row as it's actually a bit too long for a vertical A2 card, so I'm only going to use maybe 2 or 3 houses from here. I'm going to die cut them out of black cardstock, and the one that I'm using is from Basil Basics. It's textured, but since I don't want my die cuts to have texture, I'm going to die cut on the back of this cardstock. I'm also going to emboss this piece to add a bit more dimension to it using the embossing sandwich on my die cutting machine. Now the idea is to make a nightlife type of card, the one that would say relax after work and enjoy some free time. Now in order to pass this message, I need to make my row of houses look like they're illuminated with the street lights in the evening. I can easily achieve this look with the help of the kaleidoscope embossing powder from Spellbinders. I have been using it a lot on a lot of projects lately, and I can't seem to get enough of it. So basically, I'm going to use my liquid embossing ink from Spellbinders to cover the entire die cut with it, and then add the kaleidoscope embossing powder and heat set it. Now, this particular embossing powder is a very special one. It's a clear embossing powder with a mix of small blue, green, and a bit of brown glitter particles. Indeed, very pretty. And I also like using it for snow on some winter projects too. It looks very pretty there as well. Now, after it's heat set, you can see how cool it looks. Like I said before, I don't need the entire row. I only need 2 or 3 houses, so I'm going to cut a few off and only keep 3 for my project. I'm not throwing away the ones that I cut off. I'm going to keep them and we'll probably use them for another project later. Now, before I proceed with my card, I wanted to add a few drops of silver ink to my background. I'm using the Silk Luster liquid ink from Spellbinders. I've used this product before on some of my videos, and I seem to like it more and more with every card I make. It easily creates a nice little extra pop of color. Next, I'm going to work on my sentiment. I want my card to say relax and enjoy life. So here I have a very cool stamp set from Neat Tangled called a Stop and Go. There are some very unique sentiments inside, perfect for a non-traditional card. I already have my stamps positioned on my clear block, but I want to replace the stamped ampersand with a wooden one from Teresa Collins. The stamped one is nice, but I wanted to add a larger wooden element to my card just to spice things up a bit. So before I stamp anything, I need to bring that wooden ampersand to my clear block and measure just how much space I need in between the words in order to fit that in. After that has been determined, I can go ahead and heat emboss it on my cardstock. Now, I originally wanted to heat emboss this in clear embossing powder on white cardstock and then color it with a lovely lavender ink. The same ink that I used for my background. But then I remembered that I actually have a matching cardstock from Spellbinders, so I used that to heat emboss my sentiment in white. So here you can see the 2 sentiments side by side, one with the white cardstock colored with ink, and the other one on a matching color of cardstock embossed in white. I like the second one better, so that's what I'm going to use for my card. Next, to complete my sentiment, I'm going to use a Today stamp, also from Neat Tangled, to stamp this large circle in purple. I'm using the same lovely lavender color of ink that I used to do my inking on my card background. So I'm going to stamp that circle with the word Today to be used as a moon behind the houses. Although the moon is usually yellow, I wanted my colors to match and coordinate, so I went with the purple. I'm going to stamp this a few times and then carefully cut out with my scissors. You can use a circle die for this if you want. Now that all of my elements are ready, I can begin assembling my card. What I forgot to mention is that I die cut a little arrow with a heart out of some light gray cardstock to be placed under my sentiment. I felt like I needed to add something there, and that arrow seemed like a very nice little element. I also switched to my regular cutting mat as I have grid lines there, and I needed those to make sure I adhered everything straight onto my card. I used foam adhesive for most of the elements to create some dimension on my project. I had to cut small strips of black foam adhesive to place behind the houses to hide it. I also added lots of sequins, a little gems, and stars to my card base to really turn it into a night sky type of background. I also rounded the 2 left corners with my yellow We Are Memory Keepers corner chomper and finished making my card. So this is it for today. I hope you enjoyed my little video tutorial. If you're looking for a list of supplies to create this card, you can find it below in the video description or in my blog. And if you like this video, please remember to click the thumbs up button and share this video with your friends. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.